Use for $38.99 a quarter. Cancel. Balanced view available without standing on one leg. Search the week free. With Pension Bee, you can combine, contribute and withdraw from your pension online. We gave Mary the tools she needs to plan for the future.
It has to be the pension calculator because it really helps me to visualize my future pension pot and what I need to save now in order to reach my future goals.
We're building a pension company you can believe in. Be pension confident. Join at pensionbee.com. When investing, capital is at risk.
During the Air France rendezvous, take advantage of great offers. Whoa. Until the 25th of January, book your flight to St. Martin from £586 or Osaka from £779 from London via Paris, return including tax. Fly with Air France, voted Western Europe's best airline for the second year running by Skytrax. Elegance is a journey. Air France. To book and for terms and conditions, visit airfrance.co.uk.
James O'Brien on LBC.
12:48 is the time. You remember when news of all those parties that they were having in Downing Street began to emerge, and I suspect that, like me, you probably struggled to believe what you were seeing and hearing, and certainly, well, you just need to run through, don't you, that quick reminder of what Boris Johnson's reaction to it was. He began by saying there had been no parties. Categorically, there had been no parties. From which he segued effortlessly to claiming that if there had been any parties, he certainly hadn't been aware of them, to having to concede that there had actually been parties and he had actually attended them, but he hadn't actually realised they were parties, to being fined by the Metropolitan Police for essentially being the landlord of the address, that landlord and resident of the address that turned out to be the site of more breaches of COVID law than any other address in the United Kingdom. And don't forget, it wasn't that did for him. It wasn't that made his party turn on him, although it was probably part of a process. It's probably fair to say that the journalist who did more than any other to bring these stories to the nation's attention was Paul Brand, the UK editor of ITV News, and of course a relatively recent addition to the LBC presenting roster. And as if that weren't enough, he's going to need a foldable business card soon, because he's also the presenter of the Inside Story podcast, which tells the story, Paul, of this bizarre and possibly unique saga in British politics.
Yeah, and James, apart from all of the lurid details and and how explosive they were, this scandal was never really about kind of cake and carver. It was about truth and trust in politics, and that for us was always the mission, was to get to the truth of the matter. And lots of people have asked us along the way, how did we get to that truth? Why did our sources want to speak to us about this? And so we wanted to make a podcast that kind of lifted the lid as much as we can whilst protecting our sources and provide some of the workings behind how this investigation unfolded. So in this podcast series, Partygate, the Inside Story, you hear from our sources for the first time in their own words. They're voiced by actors because we're not stupid. We don't want to give away who they are, but it's their own words, talking about, why they leaked it, what it was like to still be working in Number 10 and for everyone to be double guessing each other, second guessing each other, trying to work out who the mole was, what it was like sitting there watching these stories being aired on every channel and watching the Prime Minister's reaction and the panic and the fact that they shredded evidence in Downing Street immediately, according to the claims, deleted as much as they possibly could to get rid of the evidence. And there are some new claims in there too about the way Boris Johnson behaved, which I'm sure we'll get on to.
Indeed we will. But I just want to rewind a little bit to how you responded or reacted when you were first told about what was going on. It must be hard to remember because the events moved so quickly and those seeds grew so swiftly into sort of great towering examples and evidence of scandal. But I still balk, Paul, at the idea that they were having parties in Downing Street when we weren't allowed to visit our mums.
Yeah, I had a slightly unusual experience of lockdown because I was covering the crisis in care homes,
Yeah.
and so I was going out and about around the country. I was privileged in a way because I was a key worker, classed as a key worker as a journalist, whether or not you can believe it. And I was travelling around the country covering the crisis in care homes, and so I was witnessing some of the worst of the pandemic. And for me, when I first saw the video with Allegra Stratton joking about a Christmas party, it was that juxtaposition for me which I just couldn't quite believe. Downing Street staff laughing and joking, when at the same time people had been weeping and sobbing and desperate to see their loved ones and couldn't do that in care homes.
And when that turned out to be the tip of a particularly big iceberg, I presume at first you couldn't quite believe your ears.
No, and also the fact, I think, that it was in that visual form of a video, and you saw the demeanour of Downing Street staff, I think made it particularly powerful, and watching that video unfold. But, a lot of people have asked me, was it exciting covering Partygate? And I genuinely, I don't remember it as being anything.
It was sickening. I found it sickening. I was a seagull following your trawler. These were your stories, and other journalists as well. I think Pippa Crerar did very well, as one would expect.
She did.
But I was sickened. I genuinely sickened by every twist and turn of the story.
Yeah, but also the responsibility, I think, of making sure that everything you're airing is spot on, because not only have you got people's careers in your hands to some degree, the Prime Minister and his staff, but also you're triggering and taking a lot of people back through the pain of the pandemic by raking back over this, right? And you want to make sure that everything you're broadcasting is spot on. If you're going to go to those families and say, I'm really sorry to tell you this, but this is what they were doing in Downing Street while you were mourning. So for me, I don't look back on that on Partygate as some kind of fun time in my career. It was a stressful time, actually, but an important time. We had to uncover what was going on.
You did, and even for people who followed events very, very closely, some of the new revelations that come out in your Inside Story podcast are hair-raising. Chiefly the one where Johnson himself comments on, as I just ran through, the denial that there were any parties, and then the denial that he attended any parties, and then the admission that he did actually attend a party but he didn't realise it was a party, and then finally the long arm of the law landing on his shoulder. This is probably the biggest revelation, unless you're holding something else back, but the biggest revelation is his comments about a party he was at.
Yeah, so this is Boris Johnson at the leaving do for one of the key members of staff in number 10. If people remember, there were pictures actually that we put out of this leaving do where he's toasting with a glass of fizz in his hand. So at this party, he is alleged to have said, this must be the most unsocially distanced party in the UK right now. And why that matters is because his ultimate denial and argument right at the end of the whole saga that he still maintains became, I hadn't misled MPs, I had no knowledge of the rule breaking. Now, if you had no knowledge of the rule breaking, why were you joking about social distance guidelines being flaunted? It just seems difficult to square that with reality. If he's standing in that room, he's surveying the scene, and he's joking and saying, you guys could not be any less socially distanced right now. Is he not thinking at the same time, this is a rule-breaking event? So I think that will be key for this Privileges Committee inquiry, which is obviously still withstanding, which will be looking at whether he misled MPs when he said that he had no knowledge of the party.
Yes. Now, two questions about that, because I know you're very busy. The first is anonymity being key to what you've just described to us. Do you think your sources will... they can give written evidence to the Privileges Committee, can't they? So yeah. Will all of this be before the committee when it comes to its
potentially?
Potentially.
Some people I've spoken to are still weighing up whether or not to give evidence.
You also speak of collusion, don't you, in them checking their stories with each other, some of them, before responding to the Metropolitan Police inquiry, so there's no reason to suspect they wouldn't do the same for the Privileges Committee and the Sue Gray report.
Yeah.
Whereas now in a position where it's actually almost too late, we've let it rip, and most people have had COVID, and unbeknown to most, that even if you got away with a relatively mild acute infection in the acute phase, you don't know what damage it's done and is doing invisibly, and this is what people are now finding out. So after one infection, they might feel okay, but you can't see the invisible organ damage, and there are lots and lots of papers out there showing and demonstrating damage to the heart, to the reproductive organs, to the gut, and the virus persists in some people.
What's the evidence for damage to the reproductive organs?
Because of the viral persistence, the virus lurks and is not, the body cannot mount an immune response to get rid of the virus, so it lurks in places where there are ACE2 receptors, which is what the virus binds to when it enters your body. And unfortunately, a lot of those places are in key organs, and they can't be shifted. We need antivirals. There should be treatments
And your
Obviously,
daughter
long
is,
COVID 3 years in,
how
we
is,
don't have any.
how is she faring?
Not well. She's deteriorated over 3 years and not got better.
How did it affect her at the beginning?
Very mildly. We didn't even know she'd had it. She was one of the initial cohort in February 2020. We didn't know it was COVID back then, and it only started to slot into place over the next 10 months when we realised her health was going downhill. And it took a full almost 10 months for her to be in a position where she couldn't get out of bed. So this is the problem as well, not informing people that they need to rest. She just plowed through, obviously, like most of us would. You need to rest after you've had COVID. You need to take certain things to, help you through it. It's not just a cold.
No, it isn't just a
we
cold.
shouldn't be letting people get it full stop.
And
We shouldn't be letting people get it full stop.
or we should be trying to stop getting it. What's the situation for her now?
She had to leave university. She had already missed taking her A-levels back in 2021. She managed to recover some degree that summer and decided she would give university a go. She was so desperate to get her life back on track, but it was really the worst thing she could have done, and she lasted 4 months and then had to come home. So yes, she is being treated as much as she possibly can be for her symptoms, but we don't have treatment for the actual disease. She can manage her symptoms to an extent, but she's developed ME. She has a host of other conditions, including a neuropsychiatric condition that was triggered by this. She was perfectly fit now. So yes, it's absolutely shocking and alarming to see a country that thinks, and the world in general, that thinks it's okay to get the odd COVID infection when we know that everyone is just one infection away from what has happened to my daughter.
Well, thank you, Vicky, and I really hope things improve. It's taken time for it to get to this point, hasn't it? So it's probably going to take time. God willing, for her to get better. Health willing for her to get better. Thanks for your call, Vicky and crew. And I don't know the research that Vicky has been reading, so I'm not going to say one way or another about it, but I do know, I do believe, rather than know, I do believe firmly that the post-vaccine phase that we're in, and people, I had my booster in September, people still need boosters, and there are people who are still not taking them. That this is such a new disease, even without research, even without Vicky's daughter's experience, it pays to be cautious, doesn't it? And I don't mean restrict your life endlessly. My life is almost entirely like it was before the pandemic, and the only difference is I'm much more conscious about ventilation, and I wear a mask on a busy train or in a busy shop if it feels a bit oppressively busy to me, but not every time, because if it's not very busy and it's ventilated, I don't. It's a tiny, tiny thing, but it's an impactful thing when it comes to avoiding viral ill health with this particular illness. That's just my take on it. It's 1:32. Let's get the headlines from Amelia Cox.
Rishi Sunak has admitted to using private healthcare following weeks of speculation about whether he uses the NHS. The Prime Minister has told MPs he is registered with an NHS GP as well. A Conservative MP has had the whip removed after comparing the COVID vaccine to the Holocaust. Andrew Bridgen has been accused of spreading misinformation. And the judge in the rape trial of footballer Benjamin Mendy says he'll accept a majority verdict. The jury at Chester Crown Court has been deliberating for 12 days. LBC weather, showers for western areas this afternoon, getting heavier as they move into eastern parts. Some sunny spells, particularly in the northeast, highs of 11 degrees.
LBC.
Pay, get paid. Pay, get paid. With Barclaycard, get paid in store. Get paid online. Get paid from Switzerland. Cashflow. Pay suppliers on time, every time. Become their favourite client. Get thank you gift basket and macaroons. Get cash back on business spend. New espresso machine in staff room. Oh, paperwork. Wait, free accounting software. Search Barclaycard Payments. The payment part is just the start. Offers now available. The approval of your application depends on financial circumstances and borrowing history. T's and C's apply. Free accounting software provided by FreshBooks for selected Barclaycard customers only.
Maitre D' Donnell has a full menu, but only 14 covers booked tonight. But Donnell is a man with a plan. He's booked his next campaign on radio. So he's cooking with gas, knowing he's about to reach thousands of new food enthusiasts. Be a Donnell. Text radio to 60777.
At Benson's for Beds, you can get up to 50% off this winter. And until Tuesday, save £100 on our Temper mattresses, which come with a free 10-year guarantee. So whether you're looking for an ottoman with loads of underbed storage, or even a stylish hotel height headboard, you can make your bed your way. And the best bit? Buy now, and you'll pay absolutely nothing till 2024. Search Benson's for Beds. Sleep made better. Terms and conditions apply. 29.8% representative APR. Credit subject to status. Benson's are a credit broker, not a lender. Exclusions and minimum spend apply.
At TDC Implant Centres, we can give you full mouth dental implants in just one day.
I could feel my teeth were loosening. They didn't feel as secure.
We gave Tony dental implants
To get him to sit up and do things. Yeah, it was,
And
it was just horrendous.
And I hear you, I really do. And do you believe that was an avoidable death?
I do. I mean, he was, he was deteriorating with his Parkinson's, but he's got treatment for the, we did get a urine infection sent off for him, and then the GP phoned me after he died and said, yes, he has got a urine infection. So that was another tier to it, so we had done all the right things, I feel, but it still didn't, I mean, I've worked for the NHS for 32 years, and I've never seen it this bad.
No, I think you're not a lone voice saying that at the moment by any means, Tracy. Thank you very much indeed, and I'm so sorry about your dad. It's they're traumatizing experiences, aren't they? They certainly are. I'll get back to your calls and your texts in just a moment. I'm joined though first by Di Whittingham, Chief Executive of the UK Flight Safety Committee, aviation expert and former RAF pilot, to get some thoughts from him on this situation in America where a large number of domestic flights in the US even have been grounded because of what's at the moment being described as a technical glitch with flight control systems. The White House has said President Biden has been briefed and they do not have any evidence yet of a cyber attack, but they're clearly looking at all possibilities. Di Whittingham, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
What's your reading of this?
It's an unusual failure in the system. The point of failure appears to be the system for the giving notice to air missions. So this is the system that gives pilots information about hazards they might find en route, and it is information they need. So, for example, if you are wanting to land at an airport in, I don't know, Michigan, it would be very helpful to know that the first 3,000 feet of the runway weren't available because the service had broken up because of the adverse weather. It's that sort of information.
Right.
Or it might be, there's grass cutting or a navigation aid has been withdrawn from service or is temporarily suspended, or it might be airspace, even on the international system, that you might want to be transiting through, which is closed because of other activity. For example, Ukraine, that airspace is closed to
So it's about giving the pilot as much pre-information as possible about what he or she will face.
Absolutely, because there are calculations that have to be done and alternative arrangements made, because if you get an airplane in the air, you have to eventually get it down somewhere. So finding out that your runway is closed or that you've only got a short runway available is something that you need to know before you take off and not just before you arrive.
And who would oversee those systems? Would that be some element of air traffic control?
So the airports, the air traffic control, the military will feed into this system to provide a base level of information that everybody can access. So if you want to look up now one of these NOTAMs in India, you can do that online and find out that information. I mean, for the USA though, they have suspended their domestic activity because clearly that short haul stuff, or a lot of it is sort of short haul or slightly long haul, but it's an area where they need to ensure that their own public is safe because the pilots have got the information.
And because of the size of America, getting a plane is a bit like getting a train for lots
Yes,
of people,
it is.
isn't it?
Yeah. They do an awful lot of flying because of the distances. So it does make sense, but they do need to have this information. So it's a very sensible move to restrict those flights. Some of it might even be de-icing fluid. You have to de-ice aircraft in inclement weather. And if the airport has run out because of the recent ice storm or whatever,
you need
to know that you can get there, but you might not be able to get out again.
And just a word on that wider picture. Joe Biden at pains to say at the moment we don't have any evidence of a cyber attack. How much of a conversation is going on about potential cyber attacks in aviation?
The aviation industry is clearly looking at the threat, takes the threat very seriously. There are, of course, firewalls and all those protections that you would expect for systems like this. So it's a stretch to start thinking it's a cyber attack. It will have been considered. It's more likely to be a straight technical failure. And that will be something that they will look at in terms of how you then go about arranging your system architecture to avoid a repetition.
Absolutely. Thank you very much indeed. Good to talk to you. That's Guy Whittingham, Chief Executive of the UK Flight Safety Committee. It's 1:45.
LBC, Nick Ferrari at breakfast.
Health Secretary Steve Barclay. Figures published yesterday showed the third consecutive week more than 1,000 excess deaths in England and Wales, and showed last year was one of the highest death totals in Britain ever recorded. What, for the love of God, has your party been doing for the last 13 years?
We don't accept those figures. I think
you don't accept the ONS figures.
Yesterday. Obviously, there's been very significant changes, both in terms of the demography, the numbers within the population, but also the type of conditions that people have. We have a much older population.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Back tomorrow morning from 7. Listen on your radio and on Global Player. LBC.
Pay, get paid. Pay, get paid. With Barclaycard, get paid in store. Get paid online. Get paid from Switzerland. Cashflow. Pay suppliers on time, every time. Become their favourite client. Get thank you gift basket of macaroons. Get cash back on business spend. New espresso machine in staff room. Oh, paperwork. Wait, free accounting software. Search Barclaycard Payments. The payment part is just the start. Offers now available. The approval of your application depends on financial circumstances and borrowing history. T's and C's apply. Free accounting software provided by FreshBooks for selected Barclaycard customers only.
Alex's work trip was looking like a busy one.
The fact that it could be done in a day. To discover that was possible was a revelation.
Book your consultation. Visit smileinaday.co.uk or call TDC Harley Street.
At Benson's for Beds, you can get up to 50% off this winter. And until Tuesday, save £100 on our Temper mattresses, which come with a free 10-year guarantee. So whether you're looking for an ottoman with loads of underbed storage, hotel height headboard, you can make your bed your way. And the best bit? Buy now, and you'll pay absolutely nothing till 2024. Search Benson's for Beds. Sleep made better. Terms and conditions apply. 29.8% representative APR. Credit subject to status. Benson's are a credit broker, not a lender. Exclusions and minimum spend apply.
Leading Britain's conversation. LBC with Sheila Fogarty.
Let's get back to your calls on excess deaths, the statistics that we were going through earlier with Sir David Spiegelhalter, and what your own experience has been of whether you think somebody has died or indeed a condition you have is getting worse because of NHS delays, whether it's an ambulance delay in an emergency or a delay to a treatment. Phil has called from Romford on this. Hi, Phil.
Hi, Sheila. With regards to, first of all, 2 points that you've made about the excess delays through the ambulances not attending, etc. I was with the ambulance service for 23 years and retired in 2016. And it always happens, delays, mega delays, etc. And people sort of turn around and go, oh yes, it was only this, it was only that, and they didn't get to them quickly enough. That always happens, unfortunately, and that's the way it goes. But what I will say is that with regard to COVID deaths, I lost 9 to COVID.
Paramedic colleagues.
Paramedic colleagues, and they were excellent clinicians, you know, and they weren't foolhardy, you know, they did their job and they were professional to the last, and that was it, you know, they didn't last out. And with me, because I was out the frame then, I wasn't on the front line, and I was doing some work for the police, and they asked me to step back from the front line because I was regarded as vulnerable. So I did, and so far I've been okay. I'm not working anymore. I'm retired, but I was regarded as vulnerable, and I kind of ducked the bullet, as it were.
And do you know why your colleagues died, if you see what I mean? Because obviously some people got COVID and survived, others not, others didn't. Do you have any insights into their particular cases?
It was general. They were. What I will say is they were frontline, and they were face to face with
lots of people,
with patients, in houses, on ambulances, etc. And it was that's where they were. They were at the sharp end. I was at the sharp end, but they pulled me off it because, and a few other people as well, because of vulnerability.
And of course, it's easy to forget, isn't it, that will have been at the beginning of the pandemic. That was presumably at the pre-vaccine stage when PPE was hard to come by. The real PPE for people. Yeah.
Well, they talk about the real PPE. I mean, I was on the HART team, which is Hazardous Air Response Team, and we talked every other sentence was PPE. And it wasn't until COVID that people said, PPE, what's all this PPE? They didn't even realise what it was. And we used to carry shed loads of PPE in our vehicles for all different kinds of stuff.
There's an element of risk, by all means keep her out, but if she's going to blow the lid on how she was treated there, then maybe it would be better for young other impressionable girls to hear her story. And from what I've heard, she's more than suffered. Rog, thank you. Really good to hear from you this morning. All the very best. I'm glad you enjoyed the programme. I suspect at some point we'll pick up on the threads of our conversation as well about menopause today, which has been fascinating, particularly the diet aspect. And I talk of this as a member of a family with women who've struggled perhaps at times with the diet, post-menopause as well, and the different impact on their lives of the food that they always ate, and then suddenly post-menopause they reacted differently to it. I think that's the really frightening thing. And if you missed it earlier, you can always listen back on BBC Sounds. But Dr. Sarah Berry, who's an associate professor in nutritional sciences at King's College London, joined me just over an hour ago now, and we were talking about this research, which is linked to the Zoe Predict studies, which you may have heard of. But as a result of that, they discovered for the very first time ever that the negative effects on blood sugar control, and that can have obviously impacts on your cardiovascular system, diseases like type 2 diabetes and what have you. It's not just an inevitable part of aging, as so many of us put it down to. And actually, postmenopausal women, as a result of that change, will respond differently to exactly the same foods as they may have done just years earlier. And indeed to, as men do even at that same age, they respond the same. But if you're postmenopausal, you'll respond differently. And that's what was, I suppose, revealed by this particular study. The other aspect of the study is that those who invest in this kind of research perhaps aren't spending anywhere near enough. Menopausal women have been underrepresented in health research, according to this particular study. So have a listen back to that if you missed it. And if you've got a point you want to make about it, you can always email us as well. You can always email Eddie at bbc.co.uk if you want to pick up on the threads of the programme today, because it's his show. I'm just guesting in on it, as you know. And all being well, Eddie will be back tomorrow. In the meantime, if you wish to, you can continue to comment on the Shamima Begum story as well, because I know that Shay's picking up on the threads of that as well. That's coming up as well in the next few minutes' time. Now, before I leave you, a quick reminder of today's ambulance strikes. This is Daniel Elkeles, who's the head of the London ambulance strike.
When we don't distract it with outside stimulation. And it's all about dopamine.
Dopamine is a feel-good chemical that everyone's probably heard of in your brain. When we get something that's new or novel, we get a dopamine hit. We do crave novelty because that's in our evolutionary interest to crave novelty and always look for new ways of doing things that might be better. That's how we've evolved, really.
When we're understimulated and bored, our brain begins to create its own stimulation.
Oh, sorry, love, I was miles away then. What were you saying?
We start daydreaming.
When we go off in our minds and go on these daydreams, we're kind of giving ourselves that hit of dopamine by coming up with new thoughts and coming up with new ways of thinking. Novelty produces dopamine, so that's why it becomes more creative. It's that process in our brain that's mimicking that dopamine hit.
Sandy's done some experiments into the links between boredom, daydreaming and creativity. Some really boring experiments.
We got people really bored at the University of Central Lancashire, not by me lecturing. We got them actually copying phone numbers out of a phone book or reading phone numbers, really boring, repetitive, meaningless task. And then we gave them tests of creativity or creative potential. And we found that those people who were bored were more creative than those people who didn't have the boring task.
Those who were bored but could relieve their boredom by daydreaming were even more creative than those who couldn't.
We found that when we gave them a writing task to write phone numbers out, they were slightly less creative than if we gave them a reading task, reading phone numbers out. And that's because if you give people a reading task, it's easier for your mind to wander. If we allow those processes to happen, we get more creativity.
The parts of our brain that allow us to do this mind-wandering, daydreaming, creative process are what neurologists call the default mode network. It's deeply connected to problem solving, to retrieval of memories, and to our ability to think about our future. And it only lights up when we stop doing everything else.
If you've ever been stuck on a problem, given up and gone for a walk, only for the solution to pop into your head later, that's your default mode network in action. You need to switch off to switch it on.
Would humans have invented bread or beer or fire, if we hadn't been bored and were wondering what on earth would happen if we mix this with this, Are all these sorts of inventions the mother of boredom?
But in this world of constant stimulation, switching off is harder than it's ever been.
That's why we're constantly swiping and scrolling and looking for the next big thing and the new thing, and we get bored of things very quickly. So it's a kind of paradox. To get rid of this unpleasant state of boredom is actually to allow more boredom into your life. If nothing else, just sit somewhere and stare at the clouds. Those natural opportunities to let your mind wander are all around us if we can just put our phones away long enough to take advantage of them.
Luckily, some of us are quite good at doing nothing.
I am too good at doing nothing. I have the opposite problem of being a little too good at it. I ride motorcycles, and one of the things that I really enjoy is just being on a motorcycle with no distractions. That zen-like moment of just kind of like traversing through the world and having nothing else to think about is one of my favorite things ever. If ants do it, why can't I,
Nature Bang is a BBC audio production made in Bristol.
Produced and presented by me, Emily Knight.
And me, Becky Ripley.
And you can find all our episodes so far on BBC Sounds, where you can also subscribe to the series.
Nature Bang. And Becky and Emily will be back at the same time tomorrow when we'll learn about the culture of great tits. What can the little bird tell us about creativity and community? That's Nature Bang tomorrow at 1:45. And also tomorrow,
on BBC iPlayer. For this task, you're going to create and manufacture bao buns.
We have dough, 20 kilos.
My biggest concern is the fact that maybe we've undersold ourselves.
The negotiation came to £9.
That's a lot of dough. The Apprentice. You're more focused on revenue rather than profit. You're fired. Continues tomorrow night on BBC iPlayer.
well, we're off to Ambridge after the news, where Kate is welcoming a new visitor with a very familiar face. The Archers is in a couple of minutes here on BBC Radio 4.
BBC News at 2 o'clock. Rishi Sunak has insisted he's open to constructive discussions with unions. He told MPs during Prime Minister's questions that he wants to work with ambulance workers and nurses to end the current wave of strikes over pay. He was responding to claims from the Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, that the government had deliberately prolonged the misery of NHS walkouts by refusing to negotiate on this year's pay before Christmas. Around 25,000 ambulance workers across most of England and Wales are taking strike action today. Lizzie Archer, a paramedic who's on a picket line in Bristol, says pay is not the only issue.
It's been very highly
advertised as if we're just demanding more pay, and that isn't our only reason for being here. Our reasons for being here are for patient safety and being able to do our job and respond to incidents. It's not so much about pay, and I think that we've been kind of vilified in that they said that it's all about pay and that we're leaving people without ambulances, whereas we do have cover.
The Conservative MP Andrew Bridgen has been suspended from the party after he criticised COVID-19 vaccines. The MP for North West Leicestershire has repeatedly tweeted misinformation about the jabs and today appeared to compare them to the Holocaust. The investment bank Goldman Sachs has announced it will make up to 3,200 redundancies. The cuts will affect about 6.5% of its global workforce. There have been major delays in air traffic across the United States after computer problems at the Federal Aviation Authority. More than 5,000 flights have been affected so far. The FAA says it's working to restore the system and has ordered airlines to pause all domestic departures. Moscow and Kiev say fighting is continuing around the eastern Ukrainian town of Soledar, despite a Russian mercenary group claiming it had captured the region yesterday. The Kremlin says its air force is bombarding the area. The England men's rugby union player Owen Farrell has been banned for 4 matches for a dangerous track tackle. He was cited for the collision but should be available for his country's first match of the Six Nations. BBC News.
Now on Radio 4, Kate is on the wrong foot in the Archers.
Wow.
What?
You're so like him.
You think so?
Yeah. I mean, really. Okay, so welcome to Jakob's house.
Thanks.
Do you know how long you're going to stay?
Oh, not sure yet. 10 days maybe.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. I was just interested.
It's very nice of you to be here, just to let me in.
Not really, it's nothing. I just thought you'd like to know where the tea bags are and, you know, where the thermostat is and all that kind of stuff.
It's really kind.
And I can show you around the village if you like. Maybe tomorrow or...
Yeah, that'll be good.
Oh, there's a great little village shop. Stocks all kinds of stuff.
Great.
Sorry, I just can't get over it.
Get over what?
How much you look like Jakob.
Well, he's my brother, so...
Yeah, I know, but not all siblings look that alike, do they?
True. Although I'm the slightly better looking younger one, of course.
Well, I'm not going to comment on that.
I was joking, just so you know, just to be clear.
Okay, so there's not much food in the fridge because...
Jakob is away.
Exactly. And I didn't know whether to get stuff in or...
No, I can look after myself.
Well, I got you some milk in case you wanted a cuppa, and I got you some biscuits because Jakob never buys biscuits, and tea without biscuits is a bit depressing sometimes.
Amazing. That's amazing.
Oh, no, I mean, it's nothing. I feel like I should have cooked for you, really.
Whoa, what a brilliant landlord.
Sorry, landlord?
I mean, you're so generous and kind, you could have just left a key under the mat.
You think I'm Jakob's landlord?
Yes. Why, what are you?
I'm his life partner. Girlfriend, not life partner. Why do I keep saying that? Just partner.
I didn't know he had a partner.
What do you mean you didn't know?
Jakob doesn't tell me very much about his life.
But we've been together for 2.5 years.
Oh, no. Wait, I did know. He did tell me about you. He did.
You don't have to cover for him, Eric.
No, I'm not. I swear, I just forgot. He did tell me about you ages ago, but because we don't speak very often, I didn't know if you guys were still together. And then when he said, Kate will let you in...
Promise.
Jakob said there was a decent pub that does good food in the village. Is it far?
The Bull?
Yes.
Yeah, it's lovely. It's not far at all.
Great. I'll eat there tonight.
I could come with you if you like.
Oh, that'd be great.
And Jakob's friend Alistair, they were...
So they're eating on my own.
Alistair.
Yep.
I've drawn up 2 lists, as you suggested.
Great.
A man issue. But can I just read out who I've got for the shop?
I should go, really, Dad.
Oh, yes. You're eating at the Bull.
I can't leave Kate to entertain Eric all on her own.
Ah, well, I can wait. No huge rush, I suppose. But just one question.
Yep.
What do you think of Alice for the village shop?
Yes, I'm sure Alice would be great. Susan might not think so, though.
Oh, I think Susan is over that business with the brick now. I think it's all water under the bridge.
I'll give Alice a try, then. Oh, and what about Ed?
Ed?
Is Ed on your list?
Well, I don't think Ed would be interested in the village shop.
I meant for the best man, Dad, for Jazza.
Oh, yes, that's an excellent suggestion. Ed wasn't actually on my best man list, which is a startling omission.
Yes, it is rather. In fact, I think it's no accident that you missed him off.
What do you mean?
I think you don't want to suggest Ed to Jazza because you still subconsciously want the job yourself.
But I don't. I absolutely don't.
How would you know if it's subconscious?
You got me there. But honestly, Alistair, I'd much rather Ed did it.
Yes, I know, Dad. Look, I really must go.
I'm going to call Ed right now and offer him the role.
Don't you need to clear it with Jazza first?
Oh, yes, of course I do. Ah, hopefully that's him now.
I'll let him in on my way out.
Thanks.
Hi, Alistair, my man.
Hi, Jazza. Come in.
Thanks. Jim, how you doing today?
So, what was Jacob like as a kid?
Well, everything was colour-coded for a start.
Colour-coded?
What do you mean?
Yellow Lego in a box with a yellow label, red in another with a red label. I mean, his room was very neat, books in alphabetical order.
Really?
Yeah, and he always did his homework early. He was the worst brother that I could have had. I mean, I loved him, of course, but I heard over and over, why can't you be more like your brother?
Oh, yeah, that's tough.
No, it was fine. I mean, I'm kidding. Well, half kidding.
Kids are so different. You shouldn't compare them. Everyone knows that rule.
My parents did not know that rule.
No, mine neither, actually. But you know what's really weird, though, Eric?
What?
Jacob thinks of you as the favourite.
Does he?
Yeah, because you're the fun one.
The fun one?
Yeah, definitely.
Parents do not want fun from their children. They want reliability.
Oh, I don't think that's true.
I think that is true, actually. Adam and Debbie always get a lot of credit for being responsible and dependable, unlike me.
So you know what I'm talking about.
But you can't have everything, can you? In the one person, I mean.
Jacob had a paper round as soon as he could, up at 5:30 a.m. And then later a Saturday job too.
What was his Saturday job?
He worked at a vet's.
No!
Yes, he did.
What did he do there?
I don't know, really. He just helped out.
Wow.
I mean, it's impressive.
Yeah, kind of, but almost disturbing.
He just knew what he wanted to do, whereas I...
What do you do, Eric?
I work at conferences, that sort of stuff.
Stuff?
He's playing it down.
No, really not.
He's a conference and event stage manager. He tells everyone what to do and mixes with amazing people all over the world. It's so
That
glamorous.
sounds really interesting.
Yeah, it's good. Every job is different from the one before. But at some point, I'll need to slow down.
Why?
I just feel as if I should really have a permanent base by the time I'm 70.
You won't be 70 for a while yet.
You're right. Okay, enough introspection. It's my round. Everyone same again?
Oh, yes, please. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric.
No problem.
Well,
Yeah,
he's lovely.
I know.
Don't know what Jacob's been going on about. He seems so nice.
He's great.
Not what I was expecting at all.
I know.
I mean, they're very different.
Yeah, but Jacob made Eric sound like a proper nightmare.
Think about it though, Kate. Eric is spontaneous, chatty, good with people, and incredibly sociable. That is Jacob's nightmare.
Now, Neil is very organised, and you two have worked together for years, and he cares about you a great deal, I know he does.
He's a good boss, to be sure.
And then there's Alistair. Alistair would make a wonderful best man speech, wouldn't he? He has a very dry sense of humour, but he also has a sense of occasion. And, of course, he also cares about you enormously.
Sounds grand, but I'm not sure, Jim.
Finally, of course, there's Ed. You two go back a long way.
Aye.
He would be my top choice. But it's not about what I want. It's about what you want.
I love them all, but I don't want any of them.
Oh. Oh, well then, I'll just have to keep thinking, won't I?
Listen, Jim, please listen.
Go on.
I'm no interested in drinking games or hilarious speeches. There's only one man I want as my best man, and that's you. Because you're the best man I know.
Oh, Jazza.
But I understand you don't like the pressure of the whole shebang, so while we were talking just now, I thought up a possible solution.
What is it?
Well, what if you and Ed shared the role between you?
Now, that is an idea.
But is it a good one?
I think it's marvellous.
So we're on then?
If Ed is willing, then yes.
Great. Oh, Jim, so this is happening?
Apparently it is, Jazza. And it's going to be the best day of your life.
And we're back in Ambridge at 7 o'clock tonight when Justin is feeling community spirited. Now let's look ahead to 3 o'clock with Felicity Hannah.
There are just 20 days left to complete your tax return. Now, for some people, including me, that is about as welcome as a root canal. But here at Moneybox Live, we're going to make the procedure as painless as possible. We have a panel of experts ready to answer your questions about all things tax and tax returns. But please, we are not accepting the question, will you do mine for me? Get in touch with your queries and your comments. Email moneybox@bbc.co.uk and listen to Moneybox Live on getting your tax return done before the deadline and not putting it off anymore just after 3.
We've award-winning drama now on Radio 4 in Hattie Naylor's contemporary gothic thriller set in rural Wales. This is Dead Weather.
So she's always been the one?
No. It's not like that.
Well, how is it not like that?
It isn't. It wasn't.
So it was me for a bit in the Middle Years?
What? No.
20 years of the Middle Years, and then it was her again?
No.
So how can us, have ever mattered?
It's not like that, Sam.
Okay, then tell me how it is.
It was something that just happened.
Oh, Jesus Christ, Dylan! We've just moved. You made me give up my life in London to move here, to the middle of nowhere, to this place in the middle of nowhere, to your hometown, in this tiny, tiny village for her, because of her what? On the off chance, in the hope...
No.
What's she called?
I've mentioned her before.
No, you haven't, Dylan.
We were at school together.
What's her name?
Freya!
I gave up my job.
Well, you could go back.
Is that what she'd like to, Freya? Yes? So you can both move into our, Dylan, our dream home. Have you just been waiting then for 20 years for her to be free?
No.
How will I ever believe that?
I'm sorry.
So all this time together, all this time, it doesn't mean anything, does it? If you were always somewhere else.
I wasn't.
Weren't you? The things you wrote for me, were they even for me?
Of course they were.
How would I know? What was ever for me if all this time belonged elsewhere?
You're getting it out of proportion.
Out of proportion? Out of proportion? You made me move here and then decimated me. How is that out of proportion? And were you in contact with her all this time? Your first love?
No. Well, off and on.
Off and on? Off and on. Nice.
Look, I just came round for some things.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Sorry.
What will you do?
Have no idea.
Will you be alright?
What do you think?
What is that noise?
It's a bird. A crow, a fledgling, I think. I found it in the garden.
In that box?
Yes, in that box. I didn't know what to do with it.
So you put it in a box.
Yes, Dylan, it was dying. I put it in a box.
Will it survive?
I don't know. I rang the local wildlife trust. They would take it normally, but they're full. They told me what to do with it, so that's what I've done. They get abandoned in spring. That's what they said. It's common, apparently. I don't know how common it is in relation to husbands running off at 50.
I'm 48.
I don't know what the stats are. I mean, if they're smaller or greater, they didn't give me the stats for the abandonment of crows. Amazing that birds do that too.
I'll get my things.
Yeah. You do that.
And he said, "It's for you.
Just for me.
Every last note. It's about this place. Our time in this place. Our eternal.
Well, that's a beautiful name.
Our eternal.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe that's better. I was gonna call it For Samantha or The Lighthouse. I recorded it months back, but I saved it up for you to listen to here.
Dylan, it is so lovely.
With you. And being here together.
Do you think anyone ever lived here?
Probably once. He'll have been manned once.
The lighthouse.
The lighthouse?
No, we should buy it one day. Live in it, just you and me. Live off wine and pizza and learn the language. You could compose and I could read and cook, sew, spin.
Spin?
Yes, spin. And be someone else.
Well, I like you as you are.
A risk assessor for an insurance firm. Oh, Dylan.
You'd be lonely.
No, we wouldn't. Here. Let me listen again. I love it! I want the keys.
What?
Before you go, I want the keys.
Sam, we still own this house together.
I want the keys if you're elsewhere.
Take them.
Turn it off, Alwyn. Alwyn, turn it off. You'll wake the twins. Alwyn!
Sorry, what were you saying?
She's not great.
Well, who would be? Does she know what she'll do now?
I don't think so. I was hoping she'd sell up.
You wanted to sell the house?
I love that house.
You know the girls won't move there. You do know that.
They're 8, Freya. They don't know their own minds.
Oh, you don't know much about little girls then.
Do you think they like me?
Of course. You're ever so lovely.
They'd have their own rooms if we moved.
She's still living in it, Dylan. You've only just left. Oh, I've never hurt anyone. Not like this.
I don't want to be without you anymore.
Yes, I know.
She thinks I planned it. That I moved this year as a plan to be with you.
But you told her it isn't like that, didn't you? You told her. Not any of it was planned.
Yeah, it doesn't mean she believes me.
She must hate me so.
How could anyone hate you?
And so alone in a new place.
She's got a crow with her.
A crow?
Yeah, fledgling in a box in the kitchen. like an old witch.
Oh, that's dreadful, Dylan. Don't say that.
Oh, I should have left years ago.
You must have had happy times.
Did you? With
Sean? Yeah, some days. He was an okay dad. It wasn't the greatest of marriages, but there were still days, good days. I'd like to know what your life has been like.
Oh, you know my life.
No, all the time you spent with her.
Why?
We're ever only all the time before. This moment is because of all the time before. That's why.
Well, I can tell you everything if you want, but I'm the same person I always was, the same person you knew at school.
I want to know all of everything that happened to you. Agweir.
What does that mean?
What? You've forgotten all your Welsh?
Well, we never spoke it at home, Freya.
The truth of you. It will be in all your past.
Will it hurt you if I talk about Sam?
No. For I know you've always belonged to me. Perthyn I mi belonged to me.
Perthyn I mi.
Perthyn I mi. Now, one thing from the past that was good.
We'd go every year to the same place. Elba, just off the coast of Tuscany, has a lighthouse at the top. And we'd always visit the lighthouse. Just sit, looking over the sea. What's that?
It'll be Owen. Off out somewhere.
You don't know where he's going?
I never know where that boy goes. They told me to abandon you too. You know that? To cats and foxes. I'm not going to do that. Here. Got some boiled eggs for you. Here. There you go. But you can't think of me as Mum. If you come to see me as that, then you might never be wild again. And then we'll be even more like each other. Made domestic. Dear little thing. Let's hope you make it. What was that? Is there anyone there?
Go on then, go and choose what you like. One thing each, okay?
You'll get everywhere being soft on them.
See, I do know a little bit about little girls.
What is it?
It's Sam. Sam! What are you doing here?
What do you think I'm doing here? It's the only shop for miles.
How long have you been standing there?
Does it matter?
Sam!
Should you go after her? Dylan, you should, shouldn't you?
No. No, best not.
I'm sure children are happier in Italy, don't you think? They look happier.
Yeah, maybe. I think it's still quite patriarchal, isn't it? Brilliant if you're gay.
But don't they have a famous gay politician in the south? Apulia, I think.
I'm glad we never had them.
Gay politicians?
No, children.
Ah.
You didn't want them?
No.
Did you?
No. We're enough.
Yes. Yes, we are.
Come on. I'm in need of an aperitif.
In need of what?
Yes, a classical Negroni. Suddenly, I'm desperate for one. I'll race you to the first bar. Come on.
All right.
Come on, show me what you got. Andiamo.
Desperate for one. Mi scusi, signore. Potrei avere un classico Negroni, per favore? 2, per favore. So there they were. I watched them for it felt like an eternity. Shh, 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 shh. That's it. Grapes. An eternity. Then he saw me. Turned and saw me. I didn't know what to do. She's not very pretty, I thought. She's got a fat face. Long, dark hair, but a fat face. I should have shouted, "Hey, you! Fat face! You've stolen my husband, fat face! How did you do it? Did you use your Welsh witchery? Did you cast some spell? Are you a fat-faced witch?" But I didn't. I just took my eggs and left. They look like a family, you see. A family. Her children and him and her looking like they've always been. Like they always existed. A family. Already.